of the world teach us that it is all about change. So what do you say? Are you ready to change the world? So what we really need to think about is, when we look about change, of course, we saw the millennia of change here. But standing here right in Dubai, we don't have to go back to millennia. We can see what has happened in the last 20 years. So this was Sheikh Zayed Road, right? And probably the local people from here can tell me what year this was, but probably in the early 1990s, yes? Somewhere around that, right? Of course. And what does it look like today? Right, this is Sheikh Zayed Road. So it makes us think when we talk about change, this is changing the world. I'm sure you have seen this image before. Talk about change. This is literal change because this is an image taken from the space shuttle by NASA, in which Dubai can be recognized, and literally they have altered the geography. So when we talk about change, the question is, all these iconic projects and iconic people, how do they change? How do they change things around the world, right? It makes us think, what do these iconic projects have in common, right? So we look at, iconic projects like this or like this. By the way, this was my favorite. I took this picture this morning at 6:30 a.m. when I was running on the beach right in front of the Burj Khalifa, so that's the closest view of it. So what do these iconic projects and people who create them and lead them have in common? That is the question we want to look at this afternoon. Because really, if you think about it, we can change the world with project management. But the challenge is, I think, one of the issues is that as we get better at the application of project management, there's a realization that project management in itself is only one side of the coin. And I don't know if you've noticed this, but in the last 2 years or so, right, there is like a light bulb that's gone on in our profession. And people are realizing this more and more, that it's not just about PM. So we can get very good at bringing in projects on time within budget, right? But what if people do not come, right? They do not come to Dubai. What if people do not use our products, right? How do we change the behavior and link project management together? So one of the new recognitions is that project management is only half the equation. So we can get very good at doing projects, but if we don't think about the other side, it's only half. That's why many organizations that are maturing in project management, bringing in projects on time within budget, and still the executives are not happy, because what about the other side? So as we think about it, and there's a lot of work being done, everybody's talking about it and so on. In the last year or so, I was looking at this question as I presented this topic in many places around the world in the last 1 year about change and how to change the world with project management. I decided to look at all these iconic projects and iconic leaders in the world. And I said, what is the secret? What's the code? If we can crack that code, if we can crack that secret, and make it easy for ourselves, so as project managers, we can bring those things into our lives, perhaps the things we are doing will also cause impact with the change, right? So guess what, my friends? This afternoon, I'm going to share with you that code that I think we're getting closer to cracking. And so there's five characteristics that I'm going to share with you this afternoon, which you will be able to apply yourself in your lives, in your projects. By the way, when I talk about changing the world, what does that mean? Of course, we can do these big projects, mega projects, and change the world and so on. But I think every day, we are changing our own world too, by becoming better, by creating a future for our kids. How do I inspire my daughter right, to change the world? What should I teach you? So as we think about it, there's 5 things. So let's look at the first thing that's very essential. And by the way, in my research, I looked like people from history. If you go back, if you look at the Gandhis of the world, the Mandelas of the world, and if you come to the modern day, if you look at the Steve Jobs of the world, and if you look at projects, whether it's the Burj Dubai or the Burj Khalifa or any other projects, iconic projects around the world, you'll find these 5 elements. And by the way, you can also look at the project you're doing today, right? And you can answer the question, does your project have these 5 things or not? If your project doesn't have these 5 things, then guess what? You're not changing the world. All right, so let's take a look at that first thing. As I reveal that, it will become an acronym. And the good thing about this acronym, that there is God in this acronym. So it will become clear. So let's take a look at it. The first letter, the first word starts with the B. And it is always believe. Belief. Belief that you can change the world. Many people said, even 10 years ago, who is going to come to Dubai? It is a desert. It is so hot. Why are you building all these things? But I think the leaders of this country, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed, believed in it. Now the challenge for leaders like this is they of course know. They believe, right? But their challenge is, how do I inspire my teams, my people, my citizens to come along with the journey with me? So how do I inspire a deep sense of belief and purpose so that my teams can come along with me and we can get it done? Look, belief is very powerful. You want to change somebody? Change their belief. You change them. So, I'm sure you've heard of this anecdote before. So there's 2 workers on a construction site on a hot day, toiling, right? Working on a piece of stone, they're toiling and they're toiling. And somebody walks in, their project manager, and he says, hey, he asks one guy, how's it going? And he looks at him and, puts his sweat, wipes his sweat and says, you must be joking, can't you see? My life is cursed. I have to work hard in this hot weather. And I don't even get paid that much. He says, oh, okay, I don't even know why I talked to him, right? He seems to be in a bad mood. He goes to another person, who's doing the same job, breaking the stone, right? He says, hey, how are you doing? How's your day going? He looks up at him. And he's smiling. He says, can't you see? I am building Burj Khalifa. I'm building the tallest building in the world. That is the power of belief. On your projects, on your teams, how do we inspire a sense of purpose, a deep sense of purpose, and belief that can inspire people to, get the details, get the dirty things done on a day-to-day basis when it's hard, when things are not going right. What will help you as a project manager, as a change maker, is belief. Number 1. Are you ready for number 2? Okay. Number 2 is a very deep word. And what's interesting about this word is that it is becoming so common now all around the world. People are talking about this, right? And this word starts with the letter E, and it stands for empathy. I'll give you 3 examples. So empathy for understanding what your customers want, what your citizens want. It's a deep sense of experience. If you can't relate to empathy, just think about the E word, experience, because we live in a world of experience. What you're doing here in Dubai is creating an experience so all the tourists can come here, right? So empathy, I'll give you 3 examples. It can be products, okay? And the leaders who have changed the world, right? They really understand empathy. So Steve Jobs, right? He had a great sense of empathy. That's why many of the products that Apple created were not new, but they were just different, with a deep sense of experience. So I'll just give you a quick example, right? When the iPad came out, it was not a new product. Even Apple had actually made it before, called the Newton. But the new version, with Steve Jobs spearheaded, had a deep sense of embedded empathy and experience in it. What was the advertising when they came out with? Full-page ad in the Wall Street Journal said, you already know how to use this product. Okay, one of the tests is you should need a manual. So anyway, I think the real test is my mother, right? So my mother, who's in Bombay, I live in the States, and my mother was sick. She broke her hip and she was in a wheelchair, so the doctor said, she's sitting all day, why don't you get her an iPad? So my sister called me in New York and said, hey, when you come here next time, bring an iPad. So I go, you know what? No, sister, I'm not going to bring the iPad because mom doesn't even know English. She's never touched a computer, she's never touched a mobile phone. What is she going to do with an iPad? But as a good son, I felt guilty, so I did get one. So I went and I opened it, and I thought this is what she's going to do. She'll open the product, and then she'll put it aside after a few minutes. She doesn't want to make me upset. So anyway, I opened the iPad, I showed her a few things. Could you believe it? In 5 minutes, she was playing Fruit Ninja. That, to me, is a product with empathy. Now, how many of you know who that girl is? That girl is the world's richest teenager. That's the world's richest teenager, and you can wonder, what is she doing in a remote part of Africa, living in a hut? Okay? So I give you an example of products. Now I'm talking about services and charity, how empathy becomes important. So this is her with her mom. Anybody recognize that? If you talk about somebody who's changing the world, my friends, it is this family. They can buy a few countries, right? You know who this is? Melinda Gates and her daughter. Melinda Gates and her daughter, right? And you know about the Gates, right? They've given 95% of their wealth to charity. Okay? So you can say, oh, that is great. What a good cause, and they're doing all this. But they're doing it very differently. They're doing it very differently. Okay? Because they're obviously investing a lot in research and education, wiping out disease around the world. But where it really touched me when I saw this interview, I had tears in my eyes, and I'm trying to, tell my daughter, right, look at her. She's the richest teenager in the world, and look at what she's wearing, and what is she doing in a village in Africa, right? So what happened was, let me tell you the story. They said, what Melinda Gates shared in the interview about 9 months ago, is that when we do all this aid, right, we don't know how it impacts the people. So what I like to do is I like to go and live with these people. Every year we make a trip. So this year I took my daughter with me to a remote part of Africa, and they lived in the huts with no electricity, no water, nothing. Why? Because they wanted to experience. They wanted to empathize with the people and see what their needs are. So as she's telling the story, she said it was so worth it, this experience. Because what happened is we noticed some things which we would have never noticed, by staying far away. And all our funding, we would have targeted, it would have of course helped them, but wouldn't have solved some of the problems. So she gave a quick example of that. So she said, in the nights it would be very dark. Everybody was sleeping, and this was a teenage girl, right? She said she was very quiet during the day. She was busy doing the chores of the family and all that, very quiet. And then we noticed one thing, when everybody went to sleep in the night, she would come and she would quietly take my daughter's headlights. They took some headlights in them because you can't, even if you want to go to the bathroom or whatever, you can't see anything. So she came and she took her headlights and she put it on, and we were wondering, what is she going to do with it? She put the headlight on, and then she takes out a book and she starts to read. And that, that experience told us that for girls it is very hard, and they can only do this in the night. And what is important is for us to give them headlights. So then the next time around, we approved the whole shipment of headlights. So why I'm giving you this example is because it's very interesting to empathize. Now here's somebody you know. What is he doing? He's empathizing with the nurses, right? He's breaking fast with them, and he's empathizing, trying to find out, their experience. And of course, about His Highness, I come here frequently to this part of the region, and I've heard a lot of stories. And one of the stories that how he really believes in this E part we are talking about. And in the government, right, they have this whole program about the mystery shopper. And sometimes he does it himself, right? He behaves like an ordinary citizen and he goes and stands in the line and he wants to see how the government employees are treating, the citizens. Without experience, without empathy, how are we going to change the world? Think about it. Are you doing that today on your projects with your customers? What is their experience going to be once you close down the project? Forget about that. Even when your project is going on, do you care about the experience? Right? We're not taught to do that. All right. The next letter is G. G is a beautiful word. Starts with a gaze. My friends, I love it. This is a beautiful word because it is very different than what we are taught. What we are taught to go after is goals, right? Achieve the goals, finish the project in a certain time, finish it in a certain budget. So we go after the goals. But you know what? People who change the world have a very long-term strategic intent, a strategic gaze. So, people like Steve Jobs, people like His Highness, they're not thinking what's going to happen in 5 years. Oh yeah, the economy will come down and will go up and we'll go through ups and downs and people will say, oh, this is not possible and that is not possible. But they are thinking 2030. They have a long-term gaze. I could go on, but a perfect example is companies that have goals get swallowed by companies that have a gaze. Classic example, Motorola. Motorola was going quarter to quarter with goals, achieving their goals, and Google, with a company with a gaze, bought them up. Talk about the gaze that Google has. Google is not thinking, whether they don't even look at their day-to-day share price, right? They're thinking, how can we change the world? They're talking driverless cars. They're talking about connectivity and Wi-Fi around the world. They're talking of putting balloons in the air in Africa so everybody around the world can have Wi-Fi and internet access. Talk about a gaze. The next word, so we got B, E, G. The next word is O. Own. So how do we own and bring in accountability and ownership? What happens in most organizations is we don't promote this. We don't promote ownership. In fact, what happens is, if you look at organizations, we create silos. Even within project management, we are guilty of, what project management is all about? It's all about breaking things down. Work breakdown structure, because it's easy. It makes sense to break things down so we can manage them. That's fine, but it's very hard to bring them back together. So the perfect analogy I could share with you is kind of like this. If you go, right, in front of a mirror, right, you go in front of a mirror and you can see yourself, right? Now, somebody say, hey, it's a big project, we need to break this down. So we break it down in most organizations. We break it down. Now, can you see whole? It's very difficult, right? So we lose the holistic, integrative purpose. And unfortunately, in most organizations, this is what happens. We lose ownership. And we create systems and structures. You know what they become? They become finger-pointing mechanisms to blame other people. Oh, I just finished what I had to do. That's not my job. That was another department was going to do that. Another department does their thing. Oh, it's not our, thank God we did it. Now it's their job. Right? There is no sense of ownership. So one of the trends that's starting is we need to talk about this a lot more in project management. How do we cultivate a sense of ownership? So companies, for example, like Citibank, are creating programs where each and every associate, right, is being taught to think like an owner. So everybody's an owner, right? How do you think like an owner? Take accountability for your results. You got to own it. If it doesn't work and it's not always going to work, you don't have to blame other people for it. So a quick story about this, a quick example. Sometimes, examples hone it in. So NASA, right? Yesterday we heard from NASA. So here's a story from NASA. There is a janitor, somebody who cleans the bathroom, right? So he's cleaning the bathroom one day, and he's doing a super job. So one of the big guys, like the astronaut or a big scientist, walks into the bathroom. And he's very impressed today. He says, oh wow, it's looking very beautiful, you're doing a wonderful job. So he looks up at him. He says, sir, excuse me, I'm not cleaning the bathroom. He says, no, thank you. He says, no. He starts to wonder, why did I even bother, right? He says, no, I want to thank you. You're doing a wonderful job cleaning the bathroom. He says, sir, excuse me, I am not cleaning the bathroom. So he says, okay, what are you doing then? He says, sir, you don't understand. I'm helping put a man on the moon. That is the level of ownership. How do we create that? So people at every level can own the results instead of finding ways to blame the next person. That's not my job. Oh, okay? Think about how we can cultivate that. And then the last one, right? Last letter is D for deviant. You know what deviant means? I know typically it's not a positive word. It is a negative word. Deviant means crazy. Look, my friends, the world would have never changed if it was not for the crazy people. Innovation does not happen without being crazy, without thinking outside the box, without going against the grain, without challenging. Everything you've done in Dubai, everybody was telling you it will never work. A lot of things you did, you challenged the world, and you changed it.
Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules, and they have no respect for the status quo. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them. About the only thing you can't do is ignore them. Because they change things. They push the human race forward. While some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius. Because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do.
Thank you. By the way, that was Steve Jobs. The people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do. So the last part of this conversation, I want to give you something, right? So what can I do? So by the way, you got it, right? Why I said God is in this? Because the acronym is Be God. If you want to change the world, right? Believe, empathize, gaze, own, and deviate. So the last part of this is what can I do, right? As project managers, what can we do to change the world, right? To change the world, we have to change the way we think. We have to bring the Be God in our lives. The next generation of project managers are change makers. They make change happen. So how can we do that? I want to give you a tool. So it's not just ideas, but what would be a practical tool as I started to think about it, right? How could we put this all together? So in my journey, I met 3 friends who have become my best friends. And this afternoon, they will also become your best friends, and you will get to know them very closely. So are you ready? Come on, where's the energy? All right, thank you. So, do I have what it takes to change the world? And by the way, I want you to get something. It's possible for each one of us in this room to change the world. It doesn't have to be, the iconic things we are talking about. But if you really think about it, all of us were born, whatever you believe in, if you believe in Allah, right? We were all born with the natural thing to make a difference. to change the world, to change our families, to change our country. Otherwise, it's all about projects, right? How we do change. And innately, we are born with that, right? So, do I have what it takes to change the world? So there are 3 types of project managers, or 3 of my friends I'm going to introduce you to. Up to this point, most of us thought that there was 2 types. And if you look at all the presentations in the Congress and where project management today is, where it needs to go and what it needs to do, it's like 2 types. So this afternoon you're going to meet a new friend. Okay, so let me give you the 2 versions that you're already familiar with, right? So here we have Eric. We'll just call him Eric as a friend. You can call him whatever. Ibrahim or Eric, right? He is execution oriented. He likes to deliver things, execution oriented. And of course, we have Bill, or he is more business oriented, okay? So Eric loves to get things done. Bill loves to get value or benefits out of the things that Eric is doing, okay? And then let's meet. So this is what we typically thought, okay? So a lot of times they say, oh, you are a doer, you are a tactical or operational person, oh, you are strategic. So a lot of times say, oh, you need to think strategically to get value from projects and all that, right? So this whole conversation about change is not going to happen with these 2 people. Who we need is we need Tariq. Are you ready to meet Tariq? Okay, here's Tariq. Tariq is transformation orientation. Tariq focuses on getting things accomplished. What does that mean? So Eric is hands-on, tactical. Bill is head. He thinks with his head. He's business-minded. He thinks strategy. Tariq thinks with his heart. Eric is technical savvy. Tariq is transformational. Bill is business savvy. Tariq focuses on behavior. Eric focuses on process. Bill focuses on value. Eric focuses on the end date. Bill focuses on the end goal. And you already know about Tariq. What does he focus on? The gaze. He focuses on the gaze. Eric focuses on time and budget, outputs and deliverables. Right? Bill focuses on business benefits and outcomes and value. Tariq focuses on adoption and innovation. Eric tries to control and manage change. You know, typical project, change control. Bill manages and leads change. Tariq is a change maker. Eric focuses on oversight. Bill focuses on foresight. And Tariq focuses on insights. Eric is a game player. Bill is a game influencer. And you want to guess Tariq? Thank you very much. So what do you think? So here's the question, who are you out of these 3? By the way, the more you think about it, each one of us in this room is one of these more. You know, you can have combinations, but mostly each one of us is one of these. Some of us love to work with our hands. We love to get things done. Some of us are business-minded. We think strategy, we think value. Some of us are constantly trying to change things. You want to change things in your house, you want to change your company, you want to change this, you want to change the world, right? Transformational. So who are you? Okay, I want you to think about it for a minute. Who are you? Because this is important. Oh, by the way, we should also remind ourselves. Very important. Some people, you know, say, oh, okay, I get it. You're saying that Tariq is better than Eric and Bill. Or you're saying Bill is better than Eric. Or vice versa. Guess what? No. This is, you know, your gift from God. Whoever you are, that's fine. You know, the funny thing about us humans is what? When you look at a rose, right? In nature, we look at rose or something, and you say, oh, it's really a beautiful rose. Right? And then you look at the rose and you say, it's a beautiful rose, you appreciate it. You don't tell the rose, hey, you are a very beautiful rose, but you would be better if you were a sunflower. Let me give you training and coaching. Do we do that? No. And this is interesting, isn't it? So what's the takeaway here? What's the takeaway? The first thing is to find out who you are. And then the second thing was, if I'm Eric, I should be more like Bill. Or if I'm Bill, I should be more like Eric. guess what? No. If you are the Eric, be the best Eric in the world. If you're a Bill, be the best Bill in the world. Right? Now, so as we think about this more, right? As we think about this more, the question is, who should we bet on? Out of these three, right? If you want to bet on somebody, who should we bet on, right? So we got Eric, we got Bill, and we got Tariq. And who you should bet on is interesting. It's not Bill, Tariq, or Tariq, but you should bet on Betty. So all the women who were thinking it's a man's world, right? So you should bet on Betty. Why? Because Betty is a combination of all three. But what's the problem with Betty? What's the problem? What do you think? The problem is Bettys are very rare in this world. Right? How many, Steve Jobs are you going to have? Right? How many Nelson Mandelas are you going to have? Right? Think about it. It's very hard. So if I am thinking about this, how do I use this in my life? What's the takeaway? Takeaway, and this is interesting, right? So it's not if I'm Eric, I want to be Bill, and vice versa. So as I was doing this research, as we were thinking more about it, and it became very clear to me that what I need to do is this. If I am Eric, right? If I'm Eric, I need to be the best Eric in the world. And if I want to change the world, I need to bring who? Tariq in my life. I need to think like a change maker. If I bring Tariq in my life, and there's many examples we can look at. And if I'm Bill, right? If I'm Bill, I need to bring Tariq in my life. Interesting, right? So whoever you are, you need to bring Tariq. Now what about Tariq? Is he perfect? No. What does he need to do? Exactly. He needs to bring both Eric and Bill in his life, because Tariqs of the world have a lot of great ideas. They want to change things. But they can't get it done because they don't know how to execute. So think about it. So as we wrap up, it's a question of balance of hands, heart, and head, as you think about these three friends. What I need to do, as we said, you need to, if you're Bill, bring Tariq in your life. If you're Eric, bring Tariq in your life. So we need to think more about change and transformation. That's what this conversation is about, right? So here's the question. Do you want to change the world? Come on, wake up. It's the last session. You're going to go home. So let me ask you again. Do you want to change the world? Yes. All right. Come on, this is Dubai. You're already changing the world. He says, not now. So, as we said, we all have an innate desire to change. Whether you say it slowly or loudly, we all want to change the world. Okay? So, here's, as we were saying, it's not like iconic change, but think about it. If I change my world, my office, my family, my kids, if you change your world, and if enough people change their world, we change the world. So, let's wrap up. What I want to leave you with is three beautiful questions. Three beautiful questions from this session I want to leave you with. So, two of them you already know, right? So the first thing is, what do people who change the world do? What are their characteristics? They have be God. So the question is, do I have the be God? Now here's the thing. Think about the project you're doing today, right? And ask this. Do I believe in it? Do I empathize with it? Do I have a long-term gaze, or I just want to get the project over? It's funny, every time I talk to project managers, last week I was in Las Vegas doing a seminar for PMI, and one of the guys I was talking to, he said, oh, for me, Jack, the happiness is when the project ends. That is sad. That is sad. Because clearly he didn't have the be-God, right? So, do you empathize? Do you have a long-term gaze? Do you have ownership? Are you doing crazy things? And it applies to everything. You know, my daughter, she wants to be a surgeon. She's an evil teenager right now, 14 years old, right? So, you know, how do I practice this with her? I say, if you want to do it, you have to start believing it, right? I, as a father, have to empathize with all the things, troubling things she has to go through as a teenager, right? As I, you know, we might try to support her to do that. So she has to think long-term gaze as we cultivate that. You know, I tell Anina, look, if you're going to, you know, play games or you want to watch the movie, then what's going to happen? You know, about your long-term gaze of becoming the best surgeon in the world, right? And guess what, Nina? If you don't get a good grade, whose problem? It's not that the teacher said something or you didn't have this. You have to take ownership because you probably didn't do it right. And you want to change the world, Nina, you have to be crazy. You have to be a deviant. Right? So think about it. Do I have to be God? And by the way, you know, ask this question in your project. Ask this question of your sponsors and your stakeholders. Do they believe in this? If not, my friends, you're not changing the world. All right. Number two, who am I and how do I bring Tariq in my life? Right? Are you Eric? Are you Bill? Or are you Tariq? And how do you bring that whole other side, the change part in your life and become a change maker? And the last idea I want to leave you with, if you forget about everything I've said this afternoon, if you only remember this tomorrow morning, it should be this. Only one thing if you remember, nothing else from this conversation. Only one thing, it should be this. Remember, when you get up tomorrow morning, I know how you think. What do we all do? When we get up in the morning, we ask this question. Right? We ask this question, what do I need to manage today? Right? That's what you ask. Every day morning you get up. Say, what do I need to do today? What do I need to manage today? From tomorrow onwards, you're going to stop asking this question. What you're going to ask is, what do I need to change today? Instead of saying, what am I managing? What am I changing? And you know what the beauty of that question is? One question, you will automatically start to bring me God in your life. You will automatically start to think like Tariq. Thank you very much.